Hey everybody, this is Mike. Welcome back to my shop. A couple videos ago, I had shown a pre-trip inspection video on what I was doing to get my Jeep ready for our annual Colorado trip. That trip went off without a hitch, perfect, great. We met some friends there, wheeled with them for 6 days straight, so it was great. We also just returned back from our annual South Dakota Jeep gathering, where we met with some friends and wheeled with them for 6 straight days. So Jeep's been performing great. The little bit extra flex I got out of the rear definitely helped. There's one obstacle in Colorado that I flex over each year we're there, and I've watched a progression being able to go over this rock and having to lock up to go over it, having to just lock my rear to go over it. And then this year I didn't have to lock at all. I was able to go over it, which told me that I'm keeping all 4 tires planted on the ground going over it. So it's kind of cool to watch the progression. The downside is it takes me a whole nother year to get to that same rock each year, but it's kind of cool to watch how the various iterations of my Jeep have changed over the years. So anyway, this video is going to be, I'm gonna throw together a quick hitch stinger to protect the rear. For those of you who don't know what that is, the departure angle coming off the back sometimes can catch the spare tire, and worst case scenarios, I've seen it go up and back and shove it into the rear glass and shatter people's rear windows. With me pushing it my Jeep a little bit more this last season, I've noticed that I've kissed my rear bumper a couple of times. Earlier, one of the first trips I went on this year with our local Jeep club, I actually was coming down off a rock and I watched the guy in front of me have hit his pretty hard, so I actually deflated my tire. And when we got down off the obstacle and we got down, I noticed I had scraped it a little bit. So that was a big red flag to me that I needed to do something to protect. So therefore, some people choose not to run a spare tire. Other people choose to mount it inside. Those of you who've seen the back of my Jeep, I've got my big Max toolbox in the back, and I don't really have room for my spare tire inside. Plus, we put our lawn chairs and things like that on top of it, and cooler and whatnot. So I don't really. Well, actually, I take that back. We strapped the cooler down in the back seat, but the lawn chairs, things like that. But I really just don't want to mount my spare tire on top of my toolbox in the back. I really like keeping it here on the back. And some people that don't run them actually rely on other people to have a similar size or a same size tire. 37 is a very popular tire size. So yes, the fact that somebody else out on the trail may have one, but my wife and I wheel a lot by ourselves. That's not ideal, but we do it. And I believe in being self-reliant. So therefore, I'm not going to, even if we do wheel with other people, I don't feel comfortable banking on the fact that I'm going to rely on somebody else to have a spare tire for me. So therefore, I choose to run a full-size spare. I choose to run it on the back. It just works for me. Everybody's, open to their own interpretation of that. But with me kissing the rear bumper twice, just in the last 2 trips, I thought I wanted to protect not only the tire, but also my rear window, and I really don't want to damage. I built my bumper and my rear tire carrier about 10 years. Oh, wow, yeah, exactly 10 years ago. I've had the Jeep 10 years now, and this was one of the front and rear bumpers after the suspension and stuff. The front and rear bumpers was the first couple of mods I did. So I built this about 10 years ago, and I really don't want to tweak the spindle or damage it or anything. So therefore, I'm going to fabricate. I'm going to hurry up and knock out a rear hitch stinger. Basically what it does is it goes in the receiver, and it's angled slightly so that as you come off an obstacle, now granted, if you catch it out on the outside edge or whatever, then the hitch stinger is not going to do a whole heck of a lot. But generally, as I'm coming off an obstacle, as I'm coming down, depending on what it is and depending on what the options are, I can turn one way or another and drop one side off and miss. Like tilt-a-whirl on Flatiron Mesa, as you come down that one, you have to make a hard right turn and drop off of it. I've watched a lot of people smack their rear bumper coming off of there, even guys on 40s. The group we was with last year was there. there was a LJ on 37s and a JK on 40s, and they both smacked their rear bumpers. I come off just a little different line. I didn't come off quite as hard right, and come off a little straighter and dropped one side, but it did tip a little bit, and the wife being on that side of the Jeep didn't particularly care for her looking at the ground coming at her, even though we were nowhere near going over. She didn't care for that. So I just didn't want to kiss my bumper coming off there after watching the other two guys go off. So I started thinking about it then, and then I can't remember if it was January or February with our local club run is when I noticed I scraped mine a little bit. And then, like I said, in Colorado and in South Dakota, I kissed my rear bumper once each. And I just thought, you know what? I pulled the Jeep in to do a post-South Dakota trip, a post-trip inspection. So I checked everything over, everything's good there. I'm going to take a few minutes and knock out the hitch stinger. So I found a piece of 2-inch receiver tubing in my metal rack. So what a lot of times I'll see people do is just cut them and cut the angle and weld them on. I'm actually going to take a pie cut out of mine and bend it. That way the bottom piece stays original and uncut basically, and then I'll just weld the seam. And then most of the ones I've seen are stay open at the end. I'm actually going to take a pie cut on the end of mine also and kind of close it off. My thinking there is if I'm up on an obstacle and I have to back down, I'm not going to jab that and fill it full of dirt and mud and everything. It'll actually, with a taper on it, it'll actually kind of help me slide back a little bit rather than catching hard. So I'm going to do those two things and make mine just a little differently. And I'm also going to cut it shorter. Some of them come out several inches. Yeah, about 3 inches, the ones I've seen. They come out about 3 inches before they turn up. I'm going to turn mine up right directly out of the stinger here and bring it up, probably not quite as steep of an angle. I think I measured it and I was like 25 degrees from the top of the receiver tubing to where I want to put it on where the tire is. And I want to make it to where I can actually swing my tire. Some of them come up past the tire and are up here, so you have to pull the stinger prior to opening your tire carrier. I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to pull that every time. And also my theory is once it gets to here at the edge of the tire, even if it drops straight off, it's not going to catch anything. So I'm going to bring mine out just below the tire and about out to where the sidewall is, and then that's where I'm going to flatten mine off. So anyway, I'm going to take a couple more measurements here, and actually I'll go ahead and take the measurements on camera. Let me go grab the tube and stick it in here, and I'll make a couple of marks, and then we'll go over to the welding table. Okay, so I'm sticking in to where I'm just protruding out here past the inside of the receiver. So I'm going to say 7 to 8, 8 inches to here. So I'm going to put a little mark here. That's where the receiver is going to be. Now, like I said, I measured it once before, and I come up to about 25 degrees. So there's 25 degrees, and I am an inch, maybe an inch and an eighth below, but I'm actually going to go in. So if I go into where that angle is going to be, yeah, that'll put me, if I come out roughly an inch, yeah. If I come out roughly an inch before I make my cut, and then come up, that'll put me 5/8 of an inch below the tire, and then I'll flatten it off. So I think that's what I'm going to do, and that is at 25 degrees. So if I take 12.5 degrees off of center and cut a pie cut out of that, I should be able to fold it up and have it be 25 degrees. So let's go over to the fabrication table. So there's my inch marking there. So we are going to, let's go ahead. So there's my center mark. So we are going to mark this now about 12.5 degrees off. All right, one cut down. Let's go over and do the other one now. This is just standard 2-inch by quarter wall receiver tubing. Just keeping consistent pressure on it. I'm not pushing it real hard. I'm letting the saw blade do the work. I'm not really forcing it and heating that blade up. There it's through the 2-inch by quarter wall. Kind of gnawing away a little bit. There we go. Just kind of gnawing away a little bit at that inner edge. There's the pie cut. Here you can see I've got my pie cut, my V cut out of it. And also, I'm not sure if that's going to show up or not, but I've ground at I don't know, probably a 45 degree angle. Down to, this is a quarter wall tubing, I've ground down to just under 1/8 of an inch, so a little more than halfway, and created a land there. So now when I bend this to bend this together, I should have my 25 degree angle. I'll put a couple of tacks, but I should be able to burn in to that 1/8 of an inch and get full penetration on the root pass, and then I'll come back and do a cover pass, and then I'll decide at that point whether I'm going to metal finish it, and then I'll figure out my length out here, cut it and cap it out here, and then drill my pinhole last. So I'll probably chuck that up in the mill to make sure and find center of the tube there. So anyway, so let's go over to the press now and fold this and get my angle. Okay, nothing fancy here. I just moved my arbor blocks out. I'm going to press just off of center here. After I throw my blocks around. So this should push it right down and close it up. Relieve the pressure on that. It's starting to roll that block a little bit. And it opened up to where I've got maybe a 32nd of an inch in there. 24-ish. Use a longer one, maybe I'll get a little more accurate. Running right down the seam here. And the seam on this one. 24. Yeah, 24 and not quite 25. But I think it might be some spring back because I'm, like I said, a 32nd, maybe a 16th of an inch there. So if I clamp this and pull this up, tack it, I'll remeasure it and see where we're sitting there. So let's see, probably the best way to do that is going to be to clamp it down onto something. Let's see, that's going to want to slide. So let's prevent it from sliding. I hope this is showing up on camera. Yep, we're good there. So prevent the tube from sliding by blocking it here. Put this small block under it. Get it slightly up off the ground. Tighten it down. And that closed that gap right up. And now this one wants to slide. Easy enough. We'll just put another block, put another stop at the end of that block. Never thought I'd actually like having holes in a fixturing table, but kind of at this point I'm kind of glad I did. They come in useful, especially for things like this. Okay, slightly off the table there. Now let's clamp it down. There we go. Nothing sliding there. So, excellent. I'm going to put a couple of tacks down in here and remeasure it. Going to just tack it with some 1/16 inch. And then once I double check everything, I'll burn it in good with some 3/32 and burn it a little hotter. Double check, make sure my gas is flowing. About 17 CFH. Okay, a couple tacks. Really small ones. Guess I gotta cut them apart. Okay. Now let's see what she measures. Just a fat 25, big old 25. Okay, I'm gonna run over and test fit it in the stinger, make sure. So I pulled it in probably about one more degree. Set up my third hand for a little bit extra ground here. On my third hand, I actually have some silicon bronze on the tips of the feet here and on the tip here, which not only go to help hold things in place, but it helps to provide a better ground with the table. All right, I'm going to run a string across the top here. Okay, I don't know if that's showing up good or not, but that's the first root pass. So I burned it in good, consistent. Now I'll do the other two sides, and then I'll come back and put a cap weld on. Weld this direction because I've got a big heat barrier, a big heat sink right here in the end. This isn't as critical on thicker steel like this, but on thinner steel, it's a good practice to do, is to build yourself up like a wall or a dam, if you will. So as you're pushing the heat this way, it'll have a heat sink at the end. I mean, you're already tapering off the pedal, but on thinner steel, if you don't do that, as your heat is pushing across the weldment going to the edge, it's getting hotter and hotter, and you're backing off the pedal. If you don't have somewhere for that heat to stop and that arc to build up, it'll actually blow the end out. So I've just gotten in a good habit of making sure I push to a heat sink, and it even works. I mean, it even works well on thicker steel such as this, but it really on thinner steel and aluminum in particular, because aluminum sheds the heat so well, it's almost imperative. Just feeding the rod into this keyhole, and as I get near the end here, I'm forcing it a little bit more, going a little slower, force it a little bit more, and taper off. Okay, now I've got a good sink because I was watching it as the weld was sinking down into that 1/8 inch land that I left. As the weld was sinking down in, I was feeding the TIG rod in and build it back up. Progressing forward, it was sinking in, and I was forcing the rod in, build it back up. Now I've got a nice little trough here, but I can guarantee I've got 100% penetration because I was feeding the keyhole, that circle as I was feeling it coming through, so I had 100% penetration. So now I'll do the other side in the same in the same exact manner. Then I'll go back and put a cap, cover pass on it. So there again, I've got my end here that's built up. Actually, that other one started to get away from me, so I'm going to add a little bit here on the end. Okay, I've added just a little bit there, more on the end. Now we'll go in and we'll start in here and push it to that dam. You want to keep a short arc, so I'm forcing it down into the keyhole, and as I'm adding the filler, I'm actually raising up ever so slightly on the TIG torch to allow that filler to build up, stand proud, but not enough, not high enough to hit the tungsten. Okay. So there's the last root pass there. Do a dry run. I like to put my wrist or my forearm where I'm actually going to have complete travel for the length of the weld. Okay, there's the weave on that side, and there's the other one. I had a little low spot I had to fill in, so I'll just come back in and metal finish that now, and it'll be ready for, and then this area will be ready for paint. So then I'll work on, I think what I'll do is I'll get the hole marked now, and then figure out where I'm going to cut and cap the end and the angle. All right, I like that. I think I'm just going to cap it now, cut a piece that fits inside of there and fusion weld it, metal finish it. I got my welds here, metal finished. Got my hole marked, and it clears by at least 1/4 of an inch. It doesn't stick out past the tire, where even if you walk by and brush against the tire, you're not going to catch yourself on it, and it's not sharp and pointed. So, yep, that's what we're going to do. We're just going to cap the end here, drill the hole, metal finish it, and call this puppy done. All right, so we got most of it metal finished here. We are got it clamped here in the mill vise. We're going to find center of the tube in the Y here. Actually, pretty close to my mark there. Oops, forgot I had my stop on from whatever I was doing last. So let's feed in. Just kicks, so we're going to zero our Y. I'm going to come back the other way. It just touches and smooth and just kicks. So now we're going to half Y. And there's dead center. There's dead center on the receiver tube, top to bottom. In and out is just, we're just going to get it close. Speed it up here for my spotting bit. That's pretty much dead center on where my mark was at. Dead center there. Okay. Here's my spotting bit. Okay. Alright, I'll hit it with this is a 7/16. Slow it down a bit. And lastly, the 5/8 and slow it down. Okay, that should be that. Okay, let me put a slight chamfer on that. Alright, get her pretty close here. There we go. I'm gonna kiss that. Okay, let's wipe her down and do one last test fit. All right, well, I've got it metal finished, ready to wipe down and primer. Capped the end and put a good radius and on everything so there's no sharp edges in case with the carrier open you do happen to hit it, which I'm sure I'll probably catch my shin on it a time or two, but it might smart a little, but at least it won't cut me. So let's do a test fit here. Perfect. Comes out just to the just past the tread, not quite as far as the sidewall, and clears by a good 1/4 inch. So, all right, I think that looks good, and that will hopefully keep my tire out of my rear window in case I come off a drop-off wrong. And it actually doesn't look half bad. So I'll get that painted with some. I don't know, I'll probably go gloss black on that. Everything else, bumpers and everything are all satin and matte. The body's gloss. Maybe I'll go gloss on it just for shits and grins. Okay, so there's the finished product. Paint's dried. Let's go put it in the Jeep and see how it looks. Let's do a test fit. Like I said, just I'll have to remember that's there when I'm getting in the back, or that's at a very awkward position if I don't remember and forget. Carrier opens and closes and clears by a good 1/4 of an inch and doesn't stick out any further than the tire. So I think that'll work. Good. All right, that pretty much concludes my hitch stinger fabrication. So pretty simple to throw together, especially if you already have the parts. If not, I think I only used about a 18-inch piece of 2-inch receiver tubing, 1/4 wall. So you should be able to pick that up at a Trailer Supply House, fairly inexpensive. But that should protect keeping my tire from flexing into my window in case if I come off a drop-off straight off rather than off at an angle. So I appreciate you watching. If you like it, give me a thumbs up and don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and we'll keep you posted on more projects coming up out of our shop. Thank you for watching.